For Raw on the Netflix, January the 20th, they were in Dallas, Texas at the American Airlines Arena, not Reunion Arena. That's gone by the wayside with the big new building, 15,572, another sellout. They were sold out in San Jose the other night for SmackDown, sold out for Raw in Dallas on Monday. And again, the show comes on the air now with the Netflix presentation. They've got great graphics, the crowd shots, the arena lighting is scaled up. Everything looks big, and you see all those fucking people. And past a quick thing where during the walk-in of the talent, the refrigerator, she attacked Rhea Ripley and beat her up on the walk-in, but then they basically just go into the arena and Jey Uso, who comes in and the waving and the yeeting, and the whole place is going nuts or neats. Neats over the yeets.
No, it would be nuts. You don't change the other words. It's not like speaking.
Well, I'll change any goddamn word about my nuts I want to. They're my nuts.
It's not carny here.
Fucking Ricky Morton, every once in a while, a new guy'd be sitting in the locker room, and Ricky'd be sitting there next to him, and Robert Gibson would walk up, and Ricky'd look up and say, "Hey, Robert, show so-and-so your nuts." And Robert would lean down and put his thumbs in his ears and go, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so...
The innocent old days of pro wrestling.
I watched this program in a few pieces because now they're not on real television anymore. They've taken a bribe to go over to the streaming. And on Monday night, I was going to try to watch it live because, as I believe I've mentioned, my trials and tribulations with not only is there no on-screen fast-forward ability that I've been able to determine on this Netflix business. So I don't know how people find where they're fucking going to. But also on the TV room television, I can't figure out how to do most of it at all on that remote. So I didn't want to spend all morning on Tuesday morning in the bedroom using that TV to try to skip through a lot of this shit. So instead, I was trying to watch it live again, and I figured, well, if I start it later on, I can skip the commercials. But when I started it like at 8:30, it was already it didn't start from the beginning. It started right there where it was. So I saw the last hour and a half, and then I went back the following morning, and I found the first half hour.
Well, you have that option. You have the option to go to it live or start from the beginning.
Well, it's all so complicated.
Push the button. You just look at
On TV, it's just you got your cable remote, you hit your DVR, and you hit the thing, and it starts right from scratch. There's so many the hoops you have to jump through here on this streaming stuff, Brian. It's very unwieldy.
Well, it's getting easier by the day, so that's a good thing. And
easier for you to say.
Because I ended up watching it last night and going back and watching a couple things today. And today, when I went back and watched it, no commercials. Fast forwarded through it and rewound it, no commercials.
Well, that's what I was trying for. But then later on, when I paused it to go get something else to eat and attend to little Harley Quinn's needs, then I started missing commercials later on, but that was when I watched the last part of the show first. But we're talking about the first part of the show now, right?
Yes, because we're going in the order of the show, not in the order you watched it.
Yes, well, that's what I was trying to do till you interrupted me.
But this is your show.
Well, remember that. So anyway, Jey Uso was out there, and all he has to do is do the entrance, and they're going crazy. And as soon as he started to talk, boom, here came Gunther. And, and now they're booing again. Nobody has to even do anything. And the building's full, and they're fucking screaming. And Gunther comes out with the suit and no socks. What a heel. And they're promoting their match at Saturday night's main event, which was set up basically because Jey wants the world title, and Gunther has disrespected him and laughed at him. Are you serious? And he doesn't consider Jey any competition. And again, Gunther, what a heel. He says, you really are a funny little man. acting like the company mascot for all these fans here. Yeah, he's got an amazing way with phrases, doesn't he, Brian? And go ahead.
He's used it more than once now.
Well, that's because it fits. And then he said, when your cousin Roman whistles or Jimmy needs you or Sammy or Cody, you're a useful idiot. But I'm going to expose you as a flash in the pan. This is the way you knock a baby face. You don't come out there and you talk about all the shit that's really the matter with him. How that he looks like a fucking concentration camp survivor if he really does, or how he, is old if he really is, or how the people don't give a shit about him if they really don't. Gunther looks down at Jey because he's one of the common people. He's helpful to his friends. He's all these fans you like to yeet and wave. You're just a flash in the pan. That's the way you knock the baby face. You don't say your mother is a Canadian call girl and your father sold secrets to the Nazis or whatever. And the fans are yeeting like crazy at this. And then Jey says, hey, again, you're telling the truth, dog. I am the mascot, but this is my team. He points to the fans and they start coming up. And he turns all that stuff around to get the fans behind him. So I'm going to do this for them. You're going to respect me because I represent them. Boom. It's perfect. And Jey said, you're going to respect me too because only one of us ever main evented WrestleMania, and it wasn't you. And that's when Gunther's had all he can do. Now that's just, again, a bridge too far. And boom, Gunther jumps him, but Jey turns it around, hits him with a super kick. Gunther rolls out. Jey grabs the belt, lays it down, dares Gunther to get it. Gunther's like he wants to get up there, and then he reaches in and grabs it and takes off real quick. Again, Jey didn't have to talk, which is always a plus. Gunther's a great heel. The people are into this issue like everything else, and they did enough to tease the people to watch the match on Saturday. So, it's not rocket surgery or brain science, but they keep doing it better than they have in a long time. And I would say better than the other guys are, but the other guys aren't doing it at all. Your thoughts, young Brian?
Jey Uso excels in scenes. That's really what it is. He excels in the scenes he has. I'm not really looking forward to the match, necessarily.
I think Gunther can corral him if anybody can.
While the yeet stuff is it's nonstop. If you listen to what he's saying and how intense he gets, Jey Uso's still great in these segments. And we'll see how Saturday night's main event is an interesting lineup this time.
You sound like Mr. Burns there, rubbing your hands together. Saturday night's main event is an interesting lineup this time. Let's talk about that. Well, we'll talk about something else in a minute. But anyway, then we moved along in Raw. New Day was in the back harassing JBL, and New Day are heels now, and more on that here shortly, because we had to see Bayley and the refrigerator argue again and be introduced to some professional bull riders at ringside. Brian, we were on top of that son of a bitch. How did we know?
We didn't want to come out and just overtly say it, but there was a reason why all of a sudden we were covering bull riding here on the show. WWE, you got a problem. We know everything you're doing. We've got a mole all the way at the top, and you'll never figure out who he is.
Not only is he a mole, but he's a bull mole.
That's right, the worst kind of mole. Can't stop him.
I swear to God, if I'm lying, I'm flying, and my feet ain't left the ground. Now that some of the snow and ice have melted in the backyard right outside the back door that gets all the sun, even though it's still been cold, we've got a bare area, and a goddamn mole got stuck under the ice and could not get through it and has gone everywhere in a panic, all around our sitting area, right up next to the back door, around the little fire pit thing. It's just every fucking where. He couldn't get out.
When I was a kid, there was a cheap Sesame Street ripoff show on Nickelodeon called Pinwheel. Like, instead of Bert and Ernie, they had Plus and Minus. Like, it was just the cheapest ripoff wannabe Sesame Street. But it was endearing in some bizarre way because I don't have to watch it anymore. And they had a character, Molly the Mole. And at the same time, kind of had this, unfortunate looking, not that she was like deformed, but she was just not an attractive woman across the street.
She had an unfortunate face.
My father started calling her Molly the Mole.
The mole on it. Well, anyway, where were we going with that?
With Molly the Mole.
Well, the mole couldn't get out and Molly couldn't get back in. But now we're back to the match. So Rey Mysterio, he's on everything now suddenly. Is he part of the transfer portal, or are they just excited to have Rey on the show? But he had a single match with Kofi Kingston with JBL on color. And I never thought I would say this. I like the New Day. It's a new day for the New Day. They came out and they said, cut that music and turn those lights off. We didn't have to see the bootios and the pancakes. They're dressed in street clothes. The whole arena is booing the shit out of them and chanting New Day sucks. And Woods gave Kofi the big introduction and the fans were into it. And Kofi, he's wrestling in jeans and tennis shoes and they're full heels. And no trombones. So, again, a typical Rey Mysterio match in that he shines a bit at the beginning and then he likes to have the heel cut him off where he can fight from underneath and get sympathy. On this one, did you see Kofi go for the power bomb and they were going to do a Rana spot and he lost him on the floor?
I ended up not watching this match.
Oh, and this was one of the highlights. Not this move, but this match. But he went to power bomb or pick up Rey for a power bomb. They're on the floor and they're going to do the spot where Rey does the Rana out of it, blah, blah, blah. But when Kofi went to pull him up, he lost his grip and lost him. And Rey did kind of like a front somersault, landed back first on the goddamn floor. And it wasn't a big enough bump that, it would kill you, although I'm glad it wasn't head first. But nobody panicked. They didn't immediately go right back to the same thing. Kofi stalled and did a couple of basic things. And then they got in a different place and kind of went back to it. And Rey Hurricane Rona'd him into the stairs. And that was their break spot. But nobody got hurt and nobody panicked. And then they came back from the break, had a good match. And Rey went for the 619 and Woods tripped him. And the referee kicked Woods out of ringside. And then Rey did the 619 and went for the splash, but Kofi brought his knees up, got a 2 count. And Kofi went for something, but Rey got a quick roll up, 1, 2, 3. And then Woods came back out and they got some heat on Rey until here came the Lucha faces, whoever the fuck they are. Joaquin was walking and Randy was running. But then the New Day bailed out and then came back and jumped one face real quick and then ran out. So I'm liking the New Day as heels. It's different, and boy, howdy was it time for it, right? I mean, and you didn't watch them. You're prejudiced, Brian, against the New Day. Because they used to like pancakes, and you're a dirty pancake-ite.
Well, I don't know about that. But no, I saw the promo they did in the back with JBL, and I was like, man, this sucks. They're still talking in such a fake way, and I don't know. I didn't like that, so I said, I'm not watching this match.
Well, baby steps. Baby steps. They got to old habits die hard, and most nuns can't afford their first habit. All righty then, moving on. Sami Zayn, happy to find out he's officially in the Royal Rumble. Did the big in-ring promo. And by the way, now we're into the part where I was watching live as it happened. Actually, it wasn't live. I'd started late, so it was live. It was about 8:40 or so in the night. And now I'm in the bedroom and I'm laying there with my pad, Brian. You can envision me laying in bed with my notepad and my pen, intently watching this program in a supine position. I'm going to start getting sleepy because it's almost 9 o'clock. So some of my recollections may be hazy. And as I'm looking at some of these notes, it kind of looks like when Jerry Seinfeld wrote down a joke that he woke up in the middle of the night and wrote it down so he wouldn't forget it, and now he can't read it. But we'll soldier on, okay?
Well, you didn't watch the segment?
No, I watched them. I'm just saying sometimes my notes are a little, I was nodding sometimes, and my notes are a little incoherent, so... there was sometimes I would, what happened? That type of thing. But anyway, so Sami's in the ring and he declares for the Royal Rumble and he does a great babyface promo about wanting the World Heavyweight Championship and the blah, blah, blah. And again, he can talk and he's over as that nice guy, the Mick Foley that tries to get everybody together and sees the best in everybody and always tries to be the voice of reason. And they love him. And then Owens' music plays. And the place comes up because now here comes this dickhead, but most of them know because they've had such a checkered history that they're friends and a blah, blah, blah. It's not like they've tried to hide the fact that they've been lifelong friends. So Owens said, I'm not going to get mad at you, Sami, because it's not the same as when Cody teamed up with Roman Reigns, because you've forgiven me. You forgive you forgive everybody. You're a good person. And I believe that, Sami, that you're going to win the Royal Rumble. And he gets all fired up. Because then he says, and remember what he did on SmackDown. It's the same fucking thing. Win the Royal Rumble and choose me. Well, we could accomplish all we ever dreamed of to main event WrestleMania for the WWE title. You win the Rumble, and then you pick me, and I walk out there with the WWE heavyweight title. Blah, blah, blah. All you got to do, you win the Rumble, and I've got your back, and I know that when I go for the WWE title, that I know you'll have my back. If I need you, I know you'll be there. And Sami's looking at him like, So basically, Kevin says, oh, yes, we can main event WrestleMania for the title. All you got to do is win the Rumble and then help me win the belt Saturday night at the main event. And then he walks out and leaves Sami standing there without having answered him because Sami's like, humming. But again, this is now... He's putting his friends in awkward positions, and everybody wants to win the Rumble. And Owens has an issue with Cody, but now because Sami's probably not going to help him, that means that he's going to have an issue with Sami. But later on, Sami's going to have an issue with Seth because this is great shit. This is some Leo Garibaldi level shit here, isn't it?
Oh, maybe beyond that. It's interesting because if they're going to settle everything with Cody and Owens for the belts, the belt that wasn't there until all of a sudden he stole it, I always said it, the one thing I expect these two to get is their match at WrestleMania at some point. Is this the year that we get Owens versus Sami at WrestleMania?
Well, they ain't getting any younger.
Yeah, you have to wonder. I mean, they're teasing something here, and unless Owens is going to win the title from Cody, and I do not see that happening.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're teasing something.
Could maybe somehow something is... I'm sure that Owens is going to get offended at Sami, and that maybe cost Sami the Royal Rumble.
Sami's not going to help him beat Cody. He said,
exactly.
You watch my back because I'm going to watch yours. And then
so that means if Owens is not watching Sami's back correctly in the Rumble, maybe Owens gets even with Sami in the Rumble, and then, well, there you go, and now we got to go to WrestleMania. But then we actually had some more wrestling. The Refrigerator against Bayley. For fucking ever. It was like Bayley was trying to work with a small 2-bedroom condo. And I congratulate Bayley for going this long and getting this much out of her and not getting hurt, but this awkward parade float, that long, I can't. I zoned out. I nodded off. One with the bonsai 1, 2, 3. And then it picked up because Rhea Ripley came out, was all over the refrigerator, and they had a big pull apart with agents and security. Boy, at least when I was an agent, I never had to run out and break anything up. People have thought, well, fuck, what the fuck's Cornette doing out there? He's going to fuck somebody. And they went all over ringside, and the people are chanting, "Mommy, mommy." What do you mean? What's about? I'm a heel. I'm a heel. That's why they would think that, not in a biblical sense.
That's what they say when Pat Patterson was running out there. Oh, he must be trying to fuck somebody.
Yeah, that was in a more biblical sense. But, you always, when you get fucked in a biblical sense, that's when you know you've been fucked. But finally, Rhea challenged the refrigerator for Saturday night's main event. So 4 days ahead of time. Well, let's add another one. But anyway, are we moving on, Brian, from this segment?
Yes, we are.
Yes. We had Judgment Day doing their dialogue, and then we had a package on Lyric Valedictorian, and then we got Pete Dunne, a.k.a. Butch, against Penta. And again, now that they're going all the way with this, with the lighting and the pyro, and the people like Penta, and they gave him all kinds of entrance and pomp and circumstance, and the announcers are pushing him. They're doing it right. Small opponents. Pete Dunne is, street urchin sized. And the opponents are athletic, so they can do the stuff, and he's not going to look bad in that respect. And I like this match better than I liked the debut match because he didn't start off with the nerves and flummoxing some things. They started out at 100 miles an hour, like we got to get everything in. And it settled down a little bit when Butch started getting his heat. But again, I think, he's settled down a little bit. He's a little anxious to wow everybody. But this was much better. Then Butch got the heat, and then Penta suddenly made a comeback, and it's 18 things from 18 directions. And I don't know how Dunn was supposed to sell some of them. But he hit he being Penta, hit the Canadian Destroyer, the Mexican Destroyer, at a big dive, but then Dunn foiled the Destroyer and got a 2 count, and then they went more back and forth, and finally Penta hit his finish 1, 2, 3. And as I said, I think it was smoother. I think Gable did a better job because Gable's better than Dunn. But Penta was smoother here. And again, as you've brought up, the people are predisposed to like him. Again, Dallas, a major metropolitan area. There's more liable to be people that know who he is and of his previous reputation, but they're pushed him on TV to the point where people should get the picture anywhere fairly soon. But I still think, to be honest, I'll say this and then I'll unleash you. It would have been better with his brother as a tag team. They would kind of look like a super team in this environment. They'd be like Jade and Bianca. They'd be on top. He'll be an attraction here as a single, but you can't tell me I don't think he's not going to be on the main event level of the Punks, the Rollins, the Drews, etc. Not only size-wise, but language barrier and experience at this style. It's going to take him a while. He's not a natural American worker like Eddie Guerrero was trained to be by his older brothers who had already been established here, or truthfully, the phenomenon of Rey Mysterio where he could just do any goddamn thing in the world flawlessly. I think it would have been better as a team, but they're still doing the right thing. You tell me what you think.
I think he's doing great so far, and I think he's been super over so far, 2 different markets, and You know, sure, there are some fans that know him. I mean, that's how they know Cero Miedo right away. But this is 2 times in a row he got the ooh reaction. He got it the first time he did the Canadian or Mexican Destroyer with Chad Gable. You heard oohs. He got that again here, and then when he did something relatively simple for Penta, the handstand in the corner, or the headstand, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Same thing. Ooh, you never really hear that. So yeah, they're doing it right with him. So far, the fans are really into him. He's had the right opponents, and luckily WWE does have a good amount of guys that size. As far as Rey Fenix goes, you know that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
And Tony started... Again, there's 2 different ways to look at it. Tony started fucking around with the contract. Tony said, I'm not doing you any favors. I've paid you for a lot of time you're out. I'm extending your contract. Apparently, Tony also just pulled down his merch, so he won't be getting any merch royalties while he's sitting at home on the couch. I guess now the question is, how do they introduce Rey Fenix one day? Because that day will come eventually. But right now, they're doing everything right with Penta, and he's getting a great reaction, and he has a cooler look than the average luchador. He just does, and if they don't fuck it up, he'll have a nice run, you know? Maybe Intercontinental Champion at some point, who knows? I don't see him main eventing, like you said, Punk, Rollins, no. I mean, that's ridiculous. He's never going to be there. Could they, if they were a tag team, would they be on top of the tag team division? Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Would people pay as much attention to them against the tag team division as they will him as a single right now?
Well, but the important thing is he shouldn't be losing for some time, and it's easier to go up the tag team ranks without losing than it is the singles here with the amount of talent they've got at the top. Well, we will find out.
It's interesting to think about that, though. The Lucha Brothers and the Motor City Machine Guns. Lucha Brothers, and even Lucha Brothers and DIY, I bet that would tear the house down for them.
Yeah, and maybe they could put a mask on Gargano, too, so we wouldn't have to look at that face.
That could be the gimmick. He becomes like the opposite of Penta.
Well, how about this? Just loser of the match has to put a mask on.
Mask off versus mask on. You can make it a gimmick where it's each team puts something on the line.
What about a strip poker match? Now it sounds like fucking Shitstain is booking this thing. All right. They had a package on Logan Paul. He's coming back to Netflix because that is the streaming TV is where all the cool hep kids are, and I guess they want Logan Paul, the social media celebrity, on Raw now. But they did a nice package on him. Nice package, Logan. But then another example of doing different looking interviews and getting out in the crowd in the middle of the people. All of a sudden, like Mussolini, walking through the breezeway. They had Punk come in through the... I mean, Moxley's probably thinking, God damn it, gimmick infringement. I was the one who walked through the arena. The problem is that Moxley should be walking through the front door of the arena and being checked for a ticket. The camera shot follows Punk as he does the walk through the boom into the arena, and not in the stands themselves, but up at a platform area in the stands with old Jackie Redmond, who is the only one of these female interviewers that sounds like a real news personality, a real courtside, interviewer, that she is speaking extemporaneously off the top of her head than somebody reading a recited, prepared question. I don't know why that she has that quality in her voice, but it's night and day different than anybody else. And that works with Punk because Punk sounds more real than most of the guys himself. And he does a great promo, not only on the Royal Rumble, but his feelings on the guys in it. And he mentioned, and Again, my notes that I did in the dark in the bed. He mentioned Seth, and he mentioned fucking Roman, and he mentioned a lot of the top names you would think. But then Cena. And all of these people were getting the reactions. And you want that. This is another mega single star, and he's dropping names of all these heavy hitters. And goddamn, who will win this Rumble? You could make a case for a lot of these guys. But I forgot, how did he bring up our friend from Florida, the one, the only Terry the Hulk Boulder? How did he tie him in? I'm trying to think.
He was saying how no matter who it is, he'll throw them over the top and win the Rumble, even if, I think the line was something like, even if Hulk Hogan wants to come in there, I'll throw his dusty old ass out.
Yeah, his dusty ass over there. And the people booed Hogan there. So the mention of the name. They were popping on the other names, and then he gets to Hulk Hogan. Now, okay, some people said, well, in Los Angeles at the Raw debut, it's a big city, Los Angeles. It's a Democratic state. Hogan was a Trump supporter. Maybe that's why Texas is as shit-kicky as it gets. That's the farthest place from being a liberal bastion of democracy. Redneck, White Sox, and Blue Ribbon beer in Texas, and they booed Hogan there. Has maybe people started to come to realize it's not me, Hulk, it's you. They just want to boo Hulk Hogan. They are fed up with him. And that's the point I was trying to make when we talked about the booing debacle, when he and Jimmy Hart, poor Jimmy, got scooted out of the building. He's appeared recently in years after the videotape came out. That's been baked into the cake, as they say, for a while. The sudden, not only resurgence of venomous response, but the over-the-top venomousnesses when he's been around a few years ago, and now it's even worse, is just because of his general bullshittery, right? The lying and the bullshit stories and the ridiculous reliance that the Trumpiness has to be part of it, because he's been out in public with that, but just the ridiculous behavior overall as a person in these public situations and when he's full of shit, right? That has to be the difference.
See, the political stuff certainly turned off a lot of people, or at least caused a lot of people just to go, oh, that's it. But it's not like this wasn't already happening before then. He's had a lot of issues where you don't know how the crowd's going to react, depending on what city you're in. This is now, where was it? Was it San Jose last time? No,
it was Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, that's right. It was Los Angeles, which is a city he was a big star in. They booed him. Okay. Like you said, liberal bastion. Dallas, as you put it, as shit-kicky as it gets. They booed him. They're going to be in Texas still for Saturday night's main event.
In San Antonio, which is southern and shit-kickier than Dallas.
Is Jesse Ventura going to be there?
Well, one would think that it's Saturday night's main event. Jesse would be showing up also. That could awkward.
Oh. See, that's the kind of thing Jesse would do in the classic days. He would point out how bad Hogan was. So if the fans start booing, Jesse will have a field day. I told you! Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do, but the reaction there. And the other thing I think that's important to say is Punk must have known.
Oh, yeah.
That they were going to react like that, so it's him making a statement as well. A statement of fuck Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
That's a statement.
Punk said in his clearest Farsi, fuck the Hulk Hogan. All right.
Good promo, though, but the look of it, the different energy you get from the crowd when you shoot amongst them.
Yeah.
And no one's acting like a fool. And you get the wide shot, you just see people everywhere. Jackie Redmond's as excited as they get. I don't know, she's really excited.
You could see her chest swelling up with pride.
That's Jim Cornette, ladies and gentlemen, Louisville, Kentucky. A good segment, good promo. You had nothing for Punk to do on the show except do this promo. It was good.
Well, but that's the thing is, again, it promotes the Rumble. It gets another star on television. They get the benefit of Punk for a quarter hour. And he's selling stuff, and the people are happy to be sold to. That's the thing. It's not like these people are groaning when they, another interview. Oh, shit. They're like, yes. Oh, goddamn, we love him. Let us chant while he speaks. They're not forcing any of this stuff down people's throats. They want it.
What do you think is going to happen in San Antonio? Do you think he gets booed?
Oh, Hogan?
Yeah.
Yes. I think he will. I think now it's become a thing. And now, again, if the one thing, whether it's yeet or whoa or the other singing or the chanting or it's crowd audience participation, they're involved. And, much like they wanted to hoot at Tessa Blanchard on the TNA show, now this is going to be a thing where, they booed him in Los Angeles and they booed him in Dallas, and now we're going to boo him in San Antonio also because they don't like him. But now it's becoming a thing, so it'll feed on itself.
They should have him manage Tessa. 2 birds, 1 stone. Let him take all the heat.
Boy, no, you can't do that to Tessa. I don't care what she's guilty of.
Tessa comes out there with Jimmy Hart and Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. But and they can't switch Hulk heel because he's supposed to be a goodwill. He's a goodwill ambassador with no goodwill.
And they can't turn him heel because people think he hates black people. That's not like a good reason. All right, let's just turn you heel and run with that. No, that's not how that works.
And can they blame his beer? We found out, little Hulkamaniacs, there was something in this beer that caused me to be so I'm a real American. I'm drunk on my ass and at the bottom of a can.
I think if they want him to get cheered, they better stay in like Clearwater Beach or maybe Tampa.
I don't know if that'll do it. It's just because now you're dealing with a narrow audience also, just of the people that are wanting to go to a live wrestling event. Maybe he might still get cheered over at a neutral event like a bull riding thing or a fucking rodeo or whatever.
And here's the other problem. What are they going to do with him? The last time we saw him, he can't walk. He couldn't even get to the ring. They just had him come out by the entranceway, and, he's an older guy now with lots of, you never think of him as a bump guy, but when you really think of him doing that leg drop.
Yeah.
For a big guy that was loaded to the tits on steroids, that'll do it.
And now they're singing, he is a real American, riding around Walmart in a hoverland. He is a real... All right, then we had a match that I didn't watch with Shayna and Joey, or Shayna and Zoe.
Joey.
With their manager, Joey. Shayna and Zoe with their manager, Sonya, against Io and Dakota. And that was at the point where I went to get something else to eat, I think. Or potentially Harley needed a belly rub. But then we got the WrestleMania rematch. Because remember, thankfully on Netflix, the show's only 2.5 hours long now. They think that's the sweet spot. My sweet spot would be, I think, 37 minutes, top to bottom. But at least it's better than 3 hours. They got more time to develop things than 2 hours, but they don't have to stretch things out for 3 hours. Go ahead.
Are you saying 37 minutes for any wrestling show or just for their wrestling show?
Maybe 24 minutes for the other wrestling shows and 37 minutes for theirs because they need longer to enter the ring because they're in bigger buildings.
No, because you're a great person to ask because you got to see both. Like the 90-minute Memphis show. Did you feel like 90 minutes was a better time for wrestling than 60 minutes?
Yeah, actually, in that instance, it was. And the same thing with Houston. And here, being serious for a second in the middle of this falderall, the average wrestling show was always an hour because the television stations, especially for local programming, back in those days, they wanted to program in hour blocks. And of course, there'd be half-hour programs that were originally networked that were placed into syndication, and they'd strip those like between 5 and 6 in the afternoon before the local news at 6 o'clock, or 7 to 8, network adjacency, whatever. That's where the half-hour programs would get in. And yes, you had regionally syndicated 30-minute fishing shows or whatever, but most of the time, if you're programming a sports show on the weekend, a wrestling show, from the dawn of syndication of television in the 50s until the end of the 80s, when everything started going to shit, you needed an hour program. They weren't going to take a half hour, and they weren't going to take an hour and a half. But when you had specific markets, whether it be Atlanta had 2 hours on TBS, that was a whole different animal, or Houston was 90 minutes, or Channel 5 in Memphis was 90 minutes, the television station wanted that because the program was so popular and did such big numbers. And that's why in Houston they were fine, because Channel 39, they shot in the Coliseum. Later years, they used an hour of the Mid-South wrestling program and then shot 30 minutes of content in the Coliseum, but they did their own thing. But in Memphis, the 90-minute program in Memphis is also the program that aired in a shortened version in the other markets, Louisville and Nashville and Evansville, Indiana, Lexington, Kentucky, etc. So the reason why it worked in Memphis was because you not only had the basic part of the program that, everybody could see, the matches and the live studio interviews setting up the big angles, but then you got local tape from Memphis, the Coliseum last Monday night, that the other markets wouldn't see, and promos just for that. And that was different. It was the people that watched Memphis wrestling on television got to see 3 or 4 minutes probably of the top 3 or 4 matches from the previous Monday at the Coliseum. So that was better than watching some dry studio match. So they had programming that was part of the promotion for this coming week that could still keep you occupied for an hour and a half, and they didn't need any extra wrestlers or whatever. But then that stuff would be edited down, and the main tape that went everywhere else would just have the main body of the... So it was tailored to fit a variety of purposes.
What would have made your life easier? Like at Smoky Mountain or OVW, wherever, but Smoky Mountain. If you had the option to fill up 90 minutes, would that have made your life easier?
No, it would have made my life harder. Because then this was another era still yet, we were doing 3 and sometimes 4 television shows per night at our TV tapings, because we didn't have the luxury of doing a TV studio show live every Saturday morning. So if we needed to fill up 90 minutes, that taping would have lasted from 7 o'clock until 1:45 in the morning. So it would have made it harder. Would it have been better promotion? Every fan that watched our 1-hour program would have watched our 90-minute program if we'd have had one. That wouldn't have been a fucking problem at all. And we could have put more videotape potentially from the arenas to promote shit, instead of having to shoot so much at the live tapings, maybe. But we couldn't have got any of the TV stations to run it, because that would have then not only taken up one of their 1-hour blocks, but it would have fucked up another one of their hours where they had to find a 30-minute program to go behind it, and blah, blah, blah. And we were having a hard enough time getting an hour without having to try to get an hour and a half. And think about this. What hour and what 90-minute network programs can you ever think of? The Virginian went to 90 hours and 90 hours. They went to 90 minutes, the Virginian, in the 60s, because it was such not only a popular program, but it was one of the network's prestige programs. And it was like a 90-minute television movie every week. And they did that with a very few drama programs, and they usually didn't last long. And otherwise, and they realized that it was impossible to syndicate those. So that's why you never saw an hour-and-a-half program on the networks unless it was the movie of the week, and then that was specifically timed to go into a time slot, whether it be 90 minutes, in which case the movie would be 72 or 74 minutes, or a 2-hour slot where they'd make a movie that was 108 minutes. And that's why the made-for-TV movies never needed to really be edited. I digressed, didn't I?
Yeah, Johnny Carson went from 90 to 60.
Well, he originally went from 105 to 90. In the first, when Johnny Carson first took over the Tonight Show, a lot of the local markets, the 11 o'clock news was only a 15-minute program, a 15-minute newscast. And the Tonight Show would start the network feed at 11:15 p.m. Eastern and go to 1 o'clock in the morning. But when Carson got some clout after he'd been doing it for about a year and a half, as the local news started expanding in major markets like New York, LA, Chicago, he said, he went to the network, he said, half of the country, including all the big cities, is not seeing my monologue. They're not seeing the first 15 minutes of the show. And so he refused to come out. There's an old example of this on YouTube. Ed McMahon would introduce the Tonight Show, and then they would do a bit with the band, and the band leader was Skitch Henderson then, and they would kill 15 minutes, and then they would introduce Johnny Carson at 11:30, and he'd come out and do his monologue. And finally, they just said, fuck it, we're just going to make the whole thing an hour and a half, and that forced the local stations to expand their news. See there?
Very good.
Anyway, and how it pertains to the main event of this wrestling show is the goddamn show is only 2.5 hours long, so we were already at the main event, which was the big rematch from WrestleMania between, I started to say Seth MacFarlane, Drew McIntyre, and Seth Franklin Rollins, our friend and confidant. And I don't know what all they showed before this, but when they started the package, I started trying to fast forward. And I went 10 minutes until I got to the fucking bell, at least. So they had long entrances and etc. But did you watch this match, Brian?
I did.
Two guys that look like stars and look like professional athletes. It had a big time feel because they're pushed guys and the people were, it's a big building, it's a big crowd. They both can work. And that's the whole thing, is that this was a basic match and nobody was going to get fucking hurt, nor should they. And the people were liking it. And it's in a big building with a big field with two guys that look like stars. And that's the problem right now, is people look at this and then they look at AEW, and it's not just, in some cases, the real dedicated wrestling fans especially, they don't worry about the production value. They want to see the wrestling. But AEW looks like a flea market next to this. Talent, too. That's the biggest problem with AEW's perception, is not necessarily that they're not able to match the television production, because a lot of people understand that. It's that their talent looks like goddamn idiots compared to these guys. And that's a problem. Because except for their basic audience, the average person that they may ever try to get to watch the Max or the Cock or the Flicks or whatever, doesn't matter who it is, they don't want to see some local indie looking jackoffs that aren't as impressive as their brother-in-law. And therein lies one of the big problems. But anyway,
you know what the other big problem is?
Go ahead.
You want to know what the other big problem is? I think it's very similar to the WWE under Vince McMahon. AEW started disappointing their fans more and more.
Yeah.
And now there's a feeling that they're going to disappoint you. You're not going to get what you want. It's going to be a letdown. And that's what you need to turn around. It was easy for WWE. It was as simple as, hey, everyone, Triple H is in charge. And everyone kind of took a breath. But AEW doesn't have that. And When you burn out your fans, it's hard to bring them back sometimes.
Well, and, it's not like that people, including us, but other people, we weren't the only brilliant prognosticators, hadn't been saying from the start, people won't just love you for no reason forever. Yes, at the start, it's a crowdfunding thing. They want so badly for this to succeed. They want there to be an alternative. They hate Vince, the evil empire. He takes advantage of their favorite wrestlers. Now they found out that their favorite wrestlers, when they get a big-time job on national TV and are working for a billionaire, they're just a bunch of fucking assholes too. They've got all the goddamn issues with each other that everybody else had. But it's not all, hey, kumbaya, kids, let's put on a show in the barn. It's, no, fuck this fucking guy. He's not my friend.
And again, you have to leave the fans somewhat happy. WWE does that. Those fans are like having the time of their fucking life, and we know how much they're paying for that. They're paying a fortune. Yes. With AEW, their fans look like they're walking out with their shoulders slumped.
It's like,
you're not giving them like anything they want, like in terms of angles, in terms of who's pushed, in terms of the matches, in terms of the results, the booking.
The WWE fans look like they're at a rave, and the AEW fans look like they're at a funeral.
Jeez.
It's just like they're resigned to their fate. Yeah, this fucking thing's going to happen again, too, isn't it? Hey, somebody almost got killed. More of this. But anyway, so they had a nice match, did Seth and Drew. They did the superplex into the Falcon Arrow spot, which is always stupid, no matter who does it. And lots of back and forth, some 2 counts, and finally, Seth got him with a surprise jackknife. Didn't solve anything, because it's a TV match, and why should they? Drew got some heat on him afterwards, and then Sami came out, trying to save the day, gets on Drew. Drew gets back on Sami, sidelines him, turns back to Seth, and he's pickling him. Sami runs. He's going to give Drew the big kick. Drew moved, and Sami kicked Seth right in the mush. And boom, and then Drew backs, and now because now Seth is going to be mad at Sami. And there's another fucking natural thing we've got set up for the Royal Rumble. How is he going to react to this? So they really are coming close to, everybody is still a babyface and a heel, but at the same time, they're coming close to giving even the babyfaces and or the heels legitimate reasons to be mad at everybody else. And even the heels think they're babyfaces. This is deeper shit and more connected than one has seen in a while.
This is what they were kind of trying to tell us that AEW was early on, that everything's situational, no heels or baby faces, but it didn't work out that way. Here it's starting to become that way. Well, that's because
it was a situation comedy, not a situation.
But here, I mean, there were clearly Drew's a heel.
Yeah.
But Seth, it kind of depends on what he's doing and who he's working with. Sami's a clear-cut babyface, but Rollins, you don't know. And again, the long-term tease earlier was Owens and Zayn, so we'll see what happens there.
But they got a lot of places to go and a long time to get there. They don't need to rush anything. This is one of the more amazing business turnarounds I've seen in wrestling in a while, isn't it, you? I mean, they've turned around business before, but the product kind of still wasn't that great. But now the
show feels alive. The show feels alive. That's the thing. Like from the beginning of the show till the end, and now you don't even know when it's going to end. It just so happens it was around 2.5 hours. The last 2 weeks, it can go 3.5 hours. It's whatever they want. It feels like it's the happening thing, and they're paying a fortune, those fans, to go sit there. So it's not like it's just a working man going to these shows or anything.
Yeah, no, I think they priced themselves out of the septic tank pumping fan base.
It's hard times for anyone wanting to buy wrestling tickets at a reasonable rate.
Well, there you have that. That was the Monday Night Raw. I'm sure there were some things that I've nodded off on, but we got the main parts out of the way.